Good afternoon, everyone. I would like to call to order this July 16th meeting of the Monroe County Solid Waste Management District Board, joined by our Citizen Advisory Committee. We won't call roll, but we will note that there is a quorum present of both groups. And our business today is to review and discuss the budget proposal for 2021. And without any further ado, because there will be certainly questions and comments coming along, let's turn this over to Tom McGlasson, our director, to review the budget for us. And I think you all have copies of the budget. And if possible, it's good to open that in a separate screen if you can do so.
Yeah, I mean, everything was included in a PDF form in the packet. I believe also Excel file versions of all the budget spreadsheets have been emailed out to everybody as well. So should have those in both formats, whichever your preference is. We'll note, as indicated in the memo that's on page 2 of the packet, what we're going to review today is the same presentation that was provided to the Board of Directors on July the 9th. Give the CAC opportunity to review and comment on the same budget draft that the board has seen thus far, with the idea that if there is any changes necessary, we'll take both parties' comments, suggestions, requests, and incorporate those into any revisions that may occur to be presented to the board in August before a decision is made. So, if I apologize, I know for some of you this will be repeating information because we are doing what was done at the board meeting, but to refresh or to bring to people's attention, this budget required some difficult decisions that had to be made in order to cut costs and to eliminate the budget deficit that we had for this year, which resulted from the new fees associated with the recycling processing from public services. So on the bright side, you do see we did get a growth quotient from DLGF of 4.2% on the property taxes this year. So that certainly does help to offset some things. Even though we did not have any sale of recyclable revenue budgeted for 2020, we do still have some commodities like glass and scrap metal that we do get some revenue off of, but we did estimate some decreases in those for 2021 based on the current markets and volumes that we're seeing coming through the facilities. So, Brady, did you get a copy of the PowerPoint presentation that I emailed in the other day that we can get displayed at this meeting?
Well,
is Brady with us?
He might be connected, but he may not be attending the
paying
connection.
Attention.
So, Tom, is it?
Tell him to unmute himself so he can respond.
Well, if people have the ability to look at the board packet while we're doing this, getting on page 4 of the packet are the slides from the PowerPoint.
Okay.
Hey, there it comes. Thank you, sir. Brady's having some mic issues apparently, so. So yeah, Brady, so we go to slide 2.
Tom, would slide 2 be the operating budget overview?
Yes,
Okay, just wanted to check because I'm looking at it here on my phone, so I'll just make
okay.
sure I got what's in order. Okay.
Mhm.
Well, yeah, so the next slide will give a summary overview of the various revenue and expense categories, and compare those with the current year budget. And again, there is a, like I said, because of the growth quotient increase, tax revenues increased significantly. But there is also a decrease in the household hazardous waste fees, and also, as I mentioned, decrease in the sale of recyclable fees. But the bottom line on the total revenues is $2,728,351, which is just over a $40,000 increase from the current budget. And on the expense side, and we'll get into the reasons for some of these. A $55,000 decrease in personnel services, small increase in supplies, $9,000 increase in the services and charges category, and a $35,000 decrease in the capital outlays for total expenses of $2,726,839, which is $78,757 decrease. But you have to recall that the 2020 budget had an excess of $1,000 deficit built into it. So on to slide 3, we can get into some of the detail on some of these lines.
Can I ask you a question first, Tom? I'm sorry about slide 2.
Feel free to jump in with questions whenever.
Okay, and I don't know if I'm just looking at it wrong. The under revenues on slide 2, fees from HHW and recycling, it says a $5,000 difference.
No,
It should be 500.
500. I'm sorry.
Okay.
I corrected it the wrong way. Yes, that's 500. I'm sorry.
Okay, and maybe that mistake only lives right there in that line and not elsewhere, but I just wanted to check in case it made a difference in any way.
Yeah, good catch. Yes, it should be 500.
Sure, thanks.
Can Brady advance through these slides, please?
I'm sorry?
I'm just always seeing the same slide on the screen.
I asked Brady to go to slide 2 earlier and it didn't happen. I just started moving forward, and Brady, if you're out there and can catch up when you can, that would be great. We're on to slide 3. He says he's advancing the slides. It's not showing. So technical difficulties.
Yes.
But slide 3 is the tax revenue. Again, the 4.2% growth quotient to increase the property taxes. The vehicle license excise tax, actually looking at almost a $14,000 decrease there. That's not a number that we get an estimate like a growth quotient from DLGF on. So that's based on what we got in 2019 and what the settlement was in June of this year. And looks like we've over projected that for 2020. The commercial.
What is DLGF?
I'm sorry,
Tom?
Yeah.
What is DLGF?
DLGF is the Department of Local Government Finance.
Okay, all right.
That's a division of the state that we work with through the budgeting process.
Okay. Thank you.
I'm sorry?
I said, thank you.
Okay.
I've been trying to figure out what that, for about a week, what that is.
Sorry, I take for granted that everybody knows all the acronyms. I work with them every day.
You mean like FUBAR? No.
Yeah. And then the commercial vehicle excise tax, basically the same, small increase. So on slide 4, we get into our the HHW fees and our orange bags. I guess some small decreases across the board there, and again that is based on 2019 actual revenue numbers and 2020 year to date. The one big change here, we've always, for whatever reason, in our revenue side, tried to deal with the vendor discount for the retailers that sell the orange bags, and that always shows as a negative number, which has been confusing to some people. And so we've eliminated that, and even though there's no change in the pay-per-use bag fee revenue, that revenue, $300,000 revenue projection is based on bag volume sales at the price that the retailers pay us for the bags. So, but hopefully eliminating that vendor discount on the revenue side makes things a little more easy to understand for people. On slide 5, so that's host fee. No change projected in the host fee. That's been a pretty consistent number for us throughout the years. A good increase in the rental income, and that actually, the bulk of that comes from money we get from Vectren for underground natural gas storage that occurs under some of the landfill properties out off of Fish, Anderson, and Shiloh Road. Slide 6 is our sale of recyclables. Again, that top line, sale of recyclables, and that's our fiber products or our plastic. Again, there's no revenue generated off those at this time under the current contract situation. And again, you see a small decrease in the glass and a substantial decrease in metal revenue. And again, those are just based on actual revenues that we've received and volumes that we're seeing and what the markets are bearing at this time. And then a small decrease in our sale of our batteries. Slide 7, if we get into some of the expenses. Again, as I said, there's a good substantial decrease in personnel services. This is where these tough decisions I referenced earlier were made. But in order to have a balanced budget for 2021, cuts had to be made. It was either personnel, programs and services, or a combination of both. What we did do was did make an effort, and what's in the budget does continue what was started last year and trying to bring our minimum rate of pay up to a living wage, where we went to $13 an hour last year. We are taking that up to $14 an hour this year. And that is in addition to a 2.5% wage increase across the board to all employees, and then bringing those below 14 up to 14. Thank you. Where the cuts come in, the controller's position is being reduced to a 30-hour-a-week position. The office manager position is reduced to a 25-hour-a-week position, and the rural sites are going from being open 5 days a week to being open 4 days a week. Again, difficult decisions, but the hour reductions, the way that we've worked this out, does not impact anybody's benefit eligibility. So everybody will maintain their eligibility for health insurance. Just the decisions were made for the administrative staff, just based on the amount of work that there is to do and the time needed to complete that work. And there's just not 40 hours a week of work for those two positions. We think that the hours allotted are sufficient for those positions to get the work done. At the rural sites, a kind of a function of what we've experienced over the past few months. The sites are currently open 4 days a week. By all appearances, that 4 days, that's 44 hours a week. And that's meeting the needs of the public. Even with an 8-car limit on the lots at this time, where people are still getting in. We're not seeing a whole lot of traffic backups. Certain times of certain days where that occurs, but people are getting in and out, and the 4 days a week does seem to be sufficient to meet the needs of the community for the services those sites offer. So that's kind of the rationale on those decisions that were made. The next slide, please, Brady, and get into some of the numbers of that. So you see it's almost a $72,000 decrease in wages from 2020. Small change in longevity had to do with a couple of employment changes that occurred during this year. On slide 9, kind of all the benefits and the taxes and other fringes associated with personnel expenses, decreases on those things that are directly related to wages. And unfortunately, a good increase in health insurance. That's based on an estimate from our benefit administrator at this time. It's still too far away from our renewal date to get any firm numbers from the insurance company. But JA Benefits has been pretty close on their estimates in years past, so we're comfortable with that number. Activate's advised of a 5% increase on our fees for employees to have access to the wellness clinic. And again, retirement decreases as a direct result of the wage decrease. Any questions before we move on to the supply category? Any questions, comments on the personnel services category?
I've got one question, Tom. Are you having, and it's back for the off-site facilities, are you alternating days like from where at least one of these will be open every day? So that every day one of these will be open.
At this time, no, and that is certainly something that, moving forward, if the budget passes in this manner and that 4-day-a-week schedule becomes a permanent thing, that is certainly something that could be discussed and considered. And at this time, it's more of a function of, we're still dealing with the coronavirus situation, and these are reactions to that, and the county's, the county's COVID plan, the state's COVID plan, and how those impact us. Still at this time, the belief that that's a temporary situation, and when we get back to our normal schedules at some point in the future. The other side of that, I would note that, at 5 days a week, the 4 sites were always closed on Thursdays. And people seem to have adapted to that schedule, and that didn't cause any heartache or problems for any of the residents. But again, if 4 days a week becomes the new scheduling standard, what days, what sites are open is certainly something that could be discussed and consider alternating those schedules for the sites.
Okay.
Anything else? Okay, on slide 10, we get into our supply expenses. This is a category that doesn't change drastically year to year on the bottom line, but we do have, you'll see the second one down there, health and safety line, $6,000 increase there, and that is to purchase AED devices for all of our facilities. Something that's been a desire for some time, just not something we've been able to do, but as public facilities, the government entity, I think, we're one of the few or in the area that are government facilities that do not have such devices available, and really like to be able to get those out to our facilities.
Hey, Tom, what are those?
I'm sorry?
I apologize for my ignorance, but what is an AED? I apologize for my ignorance, but what is an AED device?
It's an automated external defibrillator.
Yes.
And it's if somebody has a heart attack, or becomes unconscious on a site, an AED is something that you can hook up to them that will monitor heart rhythms and does have the ability to deliver an electric shock to restart the heart if necessary.
Mm-hmm.
And they are, in this day and age, for lack of better terminology, they're almost dummy proof. You don't need any specialized training to use them. They will talk you through what you need to do to use them properly, and they make the decision as to whether or not to deliver a shock.
Mm-hmm. Tom,
Uh-huh.
can you tell us how many AEDs will be purchased?
For what's budgeted, we're looking at purchasing 7.
7. And these are for the 4 rural sites.
It would be the 4 sites, the landfill, South Walnut facility, and the administration building.
Okay, thank you.
On slide 11, not really anything changes in there. Small decrease in repair parts, just based on what we've experienced in recent years. Slide 12. Again, some minor decreases and one small increase. Just based on anticipated need and experience in recent years. Again, you can see, what about a $1,400–1,500 increase on the bottom line there. Like I said, that this category does not fluctuate greatly on us from year to year. So,
Tom,
yeah.
are you trying to put some money in here for repair of that front end loader?
Well, not in the supply category. That would, because that's not something that we would do ourselves. That would be something we would contract out to a certified mechanic. We'll get into those lines when we get into the next category.
Okay.
But that is the last slide of the supply category. So any other questions on supplies? Okay, if we go on to slide 13 then. Again, this is our services and charges category. Seeing that top line, we've decreased anticipated legal expenses. We're currently working with the county legal department on an agreement where they would become our legal representation in most matters at a greatly reduced rate from what we're currently paying. And I believe we're currently working with a number of a $300 a month monthly retainer paid to them for them to be available to attend meetings, consult with us on contract negotiations or other issues as needed. And then we're leaving a little extra money in that category on the off chance that a need would arise where, because of a conflict or some other unforeseen situation where the county attorney's office may not ethically be in a position to represent us, we have to seek outside counsel. Engineering's going down. We do have a groundwater well survey where we survey the elevation data on those wells related to our groundwater data we have to submit to the state, but still anticipating a decrease in those services. Salts is going down. Small decrease in other professional services, based on previous year's experience. The bulk of that line, covers landfill maintenance items, mowing, repairs to the leachate collection system, maintenance of stormwater runoff features, and things like that. That because of equipment and staffing, we can't take care of ourselves anymore and contract out. On slide 14. Medical services, that goes down. I didn't make a note in there, apologize, but that's we have a handful of staff that because of things they potentially get exposed to working in HHW or out at the landfill, we do a pretty extensive annual physical on to monitor levels of potential, things like arsenic and mercury and things like that in people's systems to make sure nobody's being unduly exposed or overexposed to anything potentially hazardous. Professional social media is going up some. Been advised by our website host provider that we need to upgrade our website. Technology changes so fast that we're now ancient technology, and they said we need to make some changes or we're going to start having user issues on our website. Now the rest of those are pretty small changes, again, just based on anticipation of need or actual experiences in recent years. On slide 15, again, at the top there, mostly a bunch of small changes, again, based on what we've experienced in recent years. One to highlight, the third one, media advertising. I don't know if people recall, we did, have some good discussion with the board regarding our Comcast advertising contract, and there was a reduction made in that for 2020, and not necessarily anticipating increasing that contract, but we wanted to leave that money in there. We've identified some other potential options for advertising, things like YouTube, apps on phones, other things along those lines, that we want some money in there so that we can explore those options in 2020 and try to get our message out to a broader base of people. Workers' compensation, and this was brought up at the board meeting, that it is going up. That's the estimate based up from our agent. However, that is based on current staffing levels. If the proposed staffing levels were to go through, we would basically not off of the 20,300 number, but off of the 23,000 number. We basically said if our wages decreased 5%, we would see a corresponding 5% decrease in that workers' compensation number. So there's some potential for that number to come down slightly with the proposed staffing changes. Slide 16, I'm getting ahead of myself. Utility rates, those change every year based on whatever current rates are and our usage experiences. seeing all decreases for 2021. A decrease in building repair and maintenance based on recent experience. Slide 17. Here we get into some of the repair and maintenance. Repair and maintenance lines, significant decrease, or sorry, significant increases in those three lines. And Paul, to directly answer your question, no, none of that money was put in there specifically with the front end loader in mind. Those numbers are based on what we have been experiencing in actual expenditures for 2019 and 2020 year to date. Certainly the hope, the intent is not to need all of those appropriations to keep our current vehicle and equipment fleets, up and running. But based on experience, we wanted to make sure we had appropriations budgeted that were sufficient to avoid any interruptions in service, to our GBN customers or any of our customers at the sites. Snow removal comes down. The Bethel Lane site is the one site where we do pay a rental fee. The other three rural sites, we have interlocal agreements with the local government entities and don't pay for those sites, but we do for Bethel Lane, and there is an annual increase in that lease agreement that you see there. Slide 18. We are anticipating to eliminating the need. We currently have an off-site storage unit that we rent, where we house financial records and some landfill records, some of our education and outreach supplies. The intent is to get out of there before the end of this year and not have to pay for that next year. Dues and subscriptions is coming down just based on previous year's experience. We aren't quitting any of the organizations that we're currently associated with. We're just bringing that more in line with actual expenditures. Increase in training and education where we can. We try to put money in there to provide more educational opportunities for staff. Slide 19. No changes in our electronics or household hazardous waste disposal are anticipated, or with the other collection and disposal contracts, which is that is our orange bag disposal. Small increase in the hauling contracts. There's a contractual increase in there. The increase we're projecting is not quite that high, but that's if you refer to the comparison spreadsheets included in the packet, what we budgeted for is an increase based on actual expenses that we've seen. Slide 20. Not really any significant changes in there. Small decrease in stormwater fee, which is based on what we've actual expenses in previous years. And then they have the totals for the services and charges category is just over a $9,000 increase from 2020. So, any other questions on that category? So on slide 21, capital expenses, again, we said, $35,000 decrease, and that is, we have $35,000 budgeted this year to replace the forklift South Walnut facility. There are no vehicle or equipment purchases planned for 2020, so that money comes out. The $10,000 and other improvements is a standard appropriation that we do every year, specific to the landfill. That it's money that's there in the event that something significant happens, where we have to do a repair or regrading or something like that that has a significant expense. Any questions on capital outlays? So, and that is the extent of the operating budget. Two more slides. If we go to 22, the debt service bond budget, that's the expenses are based on the amortization table from the bond repayment schedule. And then the revenues would be from the debt service tax that DLGF will calculate and assess based on the amortization table. Expenses should be a net sum zero budget, as it is every year. And on slide 23, the cumulative capital fund budget. No revenues or expenses planned out of that, but we do approve a budget showing that every year on the off chance that something comes up or something happens where we do need to tap into that money. Having the approved budget in place allows us to go seek an additional appropriation from that fund. So those are the three budgets that we pass every year that are proposed for 2021. Questions, comments? Did I put everybody to sleep?
Yep. No. You've got a Freon removal. How are you handling these items that have Freon in them?
We accept them. You see, we have a revenue line for that. We charge a $20 per item fee for Freon appliances, and we store them in a container behind our building. We use a company called New Genesis. They come, collect them when they have a truckload to get, and they haul them away, and they deal with the Freon extraction and manage that Freon. We don't do any Freon extraction on site.
Okay, all right. So then we're just paying them to take the stuff away.
Mhm.
Well, you take the stuff away and properly manage the Freon, some of which gets
Well, yeah, but I mean that's part of it.
Gets recycled. So
yeah, they put whatever the appliance is on their trucks, take it back to their facility and deal with it.
yeah, exactly.
Okay, all right.
Tom, does the fee that the district charges for appliances with Freon in them, does that cover the costs that we pay New Genesis?
Good question. And I mean, you'll note in the budget, we have $5,000 budgeted or estimated for revenue and $3,500 in expenses. And find it on here. And so far, for the first 6 months of 2020, we've paid $1,160 for the Freon disposal, for lack of a better term, out of that same $3,500 appropriation. Would I get note in 2019, for that year we paid $3,595. So.
And how much have we taken in so far this year in the
Freon?
for the Freon?
2,430.
2,430.
Yeah, and paid out 1,160.
So wait a minute, are we charging more than it costs?
Well, we have administrative and overhead costs associated with handling those appliances. And that we could get into those numbers in more detail and look at adjusting the fee schedule. With the $20.
But Tom, can't there be things sitting behind waiting to be picked up and stuff that you've collected the fees on, but you haven't paid the company for?
I'm sorry, say it again.
So you collect the fees at the time when the people drop off the appliances. So there may be appliances that are sitting behind the facility on South Walnut Street that haven't been picked up yet that we will have to pay the recycler for.
Yes. Yeah, there could certainly be some. I doubt that there's over $1,000 worth sitting in there, just 20 an item divided by 1,000. And I know what, the two containers that they sit in. I don't know that there's room for 50. That's possible. But other things are in there too. But that, like I said, that, there certainly we're going to have things sitting on site at this time that could be included in that revenue figure that we have not had the expense on yet. But we can, if the board wishes, we can look at those numbers, over recent years in more detail, and if there's a fee adjustment necessary, certainly consider that.
I just have a personnel question. Regarding the cut in hours for the controller and the office manager. Will the workload be shifting, or what is the plan?
Well, it's part of the rationale. There's a question of how much workload is there to shift, because I've spoken with both of them and reviewed the duties and the time that they're taking, and there is not 40 hours of work for those positions. So we came up with these, the 30 and the 25, and are confident that that's ample time for them to complete their duties. If not, then there would certainly have to be some reorganization of duties to pick up the slack, but I don't anticipate the need to do that.
Okay, thanks.
This is John. Can I make a comment?
Yes, of course.
Well, we've seen this before. I do just want to go on record again that I think there's a special responsibility for government as far as possible to be counter-cyclical, and I know these are hard times, but I think doing all that we can to not reduce hours of our employees while the economy is so tough, and also trying to recognize that the fundamental measures that we're trying to address in the solid waste board, the reduction of landfilled solid waste, is going the wrong direction, that we really take an opportunity to reorient staff, reorient hours, work to look at new ways of trying to address that wrong direction. And, I know it would be a deficit budget, but the city's I'm going to propose a deficit budget this year because I think it's the time to do it when we have reserves that allow it. So I just want to make that known, and I actually would like to try to protect the hours that we have. And if there is some flexibility in the jobs, then to redirect into, let's really study why and how it's a difficult challenge, what we can do to explore ways to move the curve and work on that to our fundamental goal of reducing solid waste going to landfill. So just wanted to make that known here. Thank you.
I guess I will, I can tell everyone that all revenue and all other expense lines remaining the same as what you're looking at right now. if we maintain the 2.5% wage increase and the increase to a $14 an hour minimum rate of pay, without making any staffing changes, the budget would show a $71,000 deficit.
I'd like to chime in on something that I know John has mentioned, the mayor has mentioned repeatedly as well, and that is our policy on cash reserves. At the last board meeting, there was some confusion as to what our cash reserves actually are, how we could realistically calculate what they are, and what level is reasonable to maintain. And I think we need to have a further discussion on that, and maybe we can do that at the executive committee and clarify a few things before the next board meeting. But I think it is important to have a clear sense of what the reserves are, because we don't have a rainy day fund. We can just look at the balance and establish a policy where we want them to be, all with the consideration that in 2024, we're going to lose our host fee. So we do need to kind of save up for that, or scale back our operations so that that is not a huge hit at the time. But I really would like to take a closer look at the reserves. And I think that what John said about the counter-cyclical nature of government entities is something we should consider as well. Although I recognize in the at least in the administrative staff, that there's just simply not enough work to keep them at full time. But maybe we can think about the staff at the rural sites in that context.
So I would like to comment on this too. I believe Mr. McGlasson does have some numbers that he'll be ready to present to us at the next executive committee meeting and the board meeting. But my concern is that our reserves as a percentage of our operating budget is not necessarily the same percentage that might apply to Monroe County government as a whole, or other government units, including the city of Bloomington. And that's because we have very different operations and responsibilities. And the big heavy over our head is the landfill. Yeah, it is the most complex operation, and it is the particular operation that has things that can go wrong with it, and that we have a responsibility to take care of. So that's why our cash reserves over the years have traditionally been a higher percentage than I have seen in county government, or and a higher percentage than I've seen in other government units. So Tom, would you like to comment further on that?
Well, I mean, I agree that the landfill presents a liability that at least in Monroe County, other local government units, City of Bloomington Utilities, may be the only other one that would have a similar liability risk with the wastewater treatment plants and their monofill at Delman Road. But it certainly presents, an excess amount of liability and risk that I believe would warrant, a higher, cash reserve value. We have started looking since the last board meeting at, cash reserves and how we want to, there's a variety of ways to calculate and look at cash reserves. I don't know if people are familiar with the term burn rate, and it's something I've been playing with. The burn rate, in essence, is a number that's calculated that gives you, based on current, monthly expenses, how many months it'll take you to burn through the cash you have on hand. You can look at that in gross terms, which just strictly looks at cash on hand and expenses for a given month, or a net term, which also takes into account the revenue. And ours fluctuates greatly month to month because our expenses and our revenue are not consistent month to month. And so, on the net side, when we have months that, on the net side, traditionally that burn rate value is negative. For June and December, ours is positive because we have substantially more revenues with the tax disbursement than we have in expenses. It's on the gross side. On the gross side, for 2018, looking at a month-by-month picture, our average burn rate for any given month was 8.9. So we had 9 months of cash reserves at any given time. And that's gross. That doesn't take into account the revenue numbers. And as expected, based on the chart we see every month on our cash flow statement, in 2019, it went up to 9.1. So far this year, we're at 11.1. On the net side, when you take into account the revenue, even with the tax revenue for 2018, it was 13, so 13 months. For 2019, it was 11.4. So far for this year, it's 13.7. So it moves around a lot. And again, there's certainly other ways to look at it and try to get a more firm grasp on exactly where we are. But looking at those numbers, we have healthy cash reserves, and no matter how you slice it. And so we're in good financial standing, at this time, I guess. But we'll crunch them and play with them some more, and certainly try to have something that is fairly easy to understand for the executive committee and then the board to look at.
I'm sorry, Tom, you said you were preparing something that's easier for us to understand and look at?
Yeah, I mean, as Connie and I will continue to look at these and crunch numbers and, try to get something that is a little bit easier to make sense of, for the executive committee and the board to look at. And my recollection was that, I guess the thought was that, to look at that and try to come up with a consensus on a way for us to measure and look at our cash reserves so that it's something that we could continue to calculate and monitor on a regular basis moving forward for the board to look at.
Tom, was one of the scenarios that you shared with us on the Excel spreadsheets a scenario in which we do reduce the 2 administrative staff members, but do not reduce the number of days from 4 to 5 at the rural sites?
I believe the executive committee had the opportunity, to look at a number of different staffing scenarios. And yes, one of those, well, there were a variety of them. There's, with what we're looking at right now, and again, the bottom line of the budget that we just went through is a $1,512 surplus. If the Did you say the controller to 30 hours and the office manager to 25 and the stay at 5 days a week?
That's what I'm interested in
Was that the
looking at.
scenario you asked about?
Yeah.
Yeah.
mhm.
And that would, taking this same budget and putting that in place, that would result in a $39,271 deficit.
All right, some things to think about until the budget vote.
When does this proposed budget go to the council?
Oh, see, that's,
Hmm.
well, Connie has that scheduled. That I don't know off the top of my head. I believe,
To the council.
Cheryl, and you, but at beginning of September would be the first reading. Is that correct?
The budget work sessions are scheduled for the first full week of September.
Okay.
So, which in essence for us means that, you know, in order to have a budget proposal, you know, approved by our board in front of the council, if the board does not vote and approve on a budget at their August 13th meeting, then we have to scramble and call a special meeting before the end of the month, or, you know, or we're going to have to present something to the council that I have to say our board has not agreed to.
Tom, would you go back to the slide that shows the total budget, expenses and revenue?
That slide 2, Brady.
Okay, so for, we're just talking about the operating budget here, not the other two. For total expenses, we are slightly less than last year's budget, and by 78,000. And if the board would not pass a budget, and this is brought to the county council, and they would review that budget in the situation without the board's approval and say, wow, they don't feel like getting into this. If there's no approval by the county council, then last year's budget would be the amount that would be approved by DLGF. Anyway, that's my understanding. Tom, do you have any different understanding of this?
No, that would be my understanding. If the county council does not adopt a budget for us, DLGF would revert to the previous year.
Right. And so we have been interested in decreasing our operating budget because we are looking into the future, into a future that has no funds coming in from the host fee, and a future that is also very likely to have a very low growth quotient approved by the state. And so we will not have, we will not be so fortunate with revenue in the future. So that is why this year seemed important to us to tackle our expenses and see how we could reduce them while maintaining the services that our county residents want and expect.
I'm sorry, did I miss something? I don't know why we're talking about the eventuality of the board not passing a budget.
Well,
Did I
I'm
miss
just,
something.
I don't, that, that was a point that was raised, and I was just saying what would happen, what could happen in that case.
Well, surely we can come to some agreement. I hope.
If I recall, we lose the host fee because we lose a contract with Hoosier Disposal. Is that correct?
Yes, the contract that contains the host fee agreement expires in late summer 2024, I believe, August, September.
Okay.
So 2.5 years of host fee.
So when that expires, does that open up a myriad options of other people that do landfill operations, or what?
As far as in Monroe County, I mean, are you talking about somebody
As
else
far
coming in
as
and
us.
opening up a landfill, or?
Yeah, something like that. Do we have multiple operators coming in, or
Well,
what's?
At this time, there's nothing in that agreement can prevent a private entity from coming in and opening a facility. I mean, that opportunity has always been there. The agreement prevents the district from opening a landfill or a transfer station, but it would not prevent a third party from pursuing a permit for a waste facility in Monroe County.
Okay, so but when this contract expires, the district then could open one
Yes.
if it's so desired.
Yes.
Okay.
And what was the date on that again? I'm sorry. Was it 23 or 24?
24.
Thank you.
And is that, are we talking just about a waste processing facility or waste and recycling?
What restrictions are in that agreement?
Yeah.
Well, the restrictions in that agreement on us would pretty much prohibit us from doing any sort of waste or recycling facility. But again, there's nothing in there that would have, any restrictions on a third party.
Thank you for clarifying that.
So I have a question. Is the CAC meeting still going to be separate, or?
Yes, unfortunately, because of the way things were advertised, we will have to adjourn this meeting and everybody log off and click on the link that was in the email specific to the CAC meeting.
So that means that the people that sit on the regular board, we say goodbye to you for right now?
Well, you're welcome to log off and log back on to the CAC meeting. It's a public meeting as well.
Well, I have another meeting yet this evening, so I'm sorry that I didn't get to chat with the CAC members in person, but hopefully we won't be too delayed before that can happen again.
It was nice to see you at least.
Yeah, we look forward to hearing your comments.
Great. I am gonna propose, like, when we get into the next meeting, I'm gonna propose like a 5-minute bio break, just, so we're not sitting for 2 straight hours. So, but I'll do that when we get into the next meeting in case anyone's already in there and so they know. Is that okay?
That's good.
That's fine. And I'll probably
Sure.
join from my phone for the next meeting and then join again from my laptop whenever I'm in my office.
Sure,
So,
thanks.
yeah, several of us have a following meeting, so we will miss the CAC. Sorry about that.
That's okay. Well, thank you for the presentation, Tom, and thank you everybody for all the other information and good questions that are getting us thinking about it. So appreciate it.
Thank you. And
Thank you.
Always good.
I'd like to say it was good to see the faces of some of the CAC, except for Paul. We could only see your little telephone symbol.
Yeah, well, I've tried for a month and a half to get Zoom to work on my phone, and I can't get it to work on my phone, and I can't get it to work on my computer. So we'll do it this way.
That works too. So thank you.
I apologize that the character that you see doesn't have a fantastic mustache on it.
No, it doesn't. Well, you can think of that telephone symbol as a sort of a mustache turned sideways, I guess.
I see it.
Well, I'm gonna log off.
Okay,
All right.
thank you.
On to the next one. Thank you,
bet.
everyone.
Thank you, everyone.
Bye.
Bye-bye.
Bye.
Bye-bye.